going?
Going good. Nice to meet you. I'm Idman.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Where are you?
I'm currently in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, why
Yeah.
Ohio? That's not where you're based.
No, I live in LA, but my grandma lives here and she called me yesterday morning and was like, I need to see you. You got to come visit me. So when she calls, I listen.
Yeah, too right. When grandma calls, we do what we're told, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned that you live in LA. How long have you been there? Because I know you're from Toronto originally.
I've been there for the last, I would say, 2.5 years, almost 3 years, but I like spent some time during the pandemic back home in Toronto. So I don't want to fib. 2.5 years, I would say.
So I actually used to live in LA for a little while as well. I was in Westwood. Um, why did you choose to move to LA from Toronto, apart from the weather?
I feel like if I give you any succinct answer, I'd be lying. Originally, I wanted to move to Oakland because I think there was like a really cool music wave happening there that I was a huge fan of. And I'm someone who's super into social justice and was doing a lot of organizing work. And there's like a lot of Black liberation movement history there.
Right.
But I went to like a climate justice conference in 2016, like right when Trump had been elected. And it was ghostly and it like I think it turned me off of the idea of going to Oakland, especially when there was like so much displacement happening of locals. And when I did my arts program in Toronto, I just started saying out loud, I'm moving to LA at the end of this. And I think much like a lot of my decisions, I hit up my best friend and she was like, I'm trying to move out there too because I want to work on an app. And so we packed up a car and left with no plan. Like we didn't know anyone there, we had nowhere to stay, we just packed up a car and left.
But that's how all great stories start, right?
Golly, that's how all rough stories start. Be lucky if this one's great.
Well, it sounds like your story's going in the right direction. Congratulations on winning this award from the Black Canadian Music Awards.
Thank you so much.
What can you tell us about the awards themselves?
I think that I know that this is the second time the award's been given out, and I remember all of last year's winners, people that I'm huge fans of. I love Toby, I love Hannah, and I think that I was just really, really honored. I think the fact that there's even like an opportunity to be recognized for my music with the fact that they're pointing out our intersections and our lived experiences by pointing out the fact that we're Black people. I think my Blackness is directly linked to the art that I make. It's the lens I see the world through, and so to be recognized for that this early on, it feels like a huge honor.
Yeah. And is it something that you have to apply for, or do other people nominate you? How does it work?
I'm not sure. I think you're nominated either by your own team or by the SOCAN Foundation, and so I think however it came to be, I'm just really lucky and really happy.
Part of winning this award means you have some money to spend
Yeah.
towards your career. Do you know what you're going to do with that at the moment?
I think just definitely putting it back into the work. We run a really cool media collective, and our company is Black led and Black run, and we're predominantly Black and Brown people. I think almost entirely, except for one employee. And a lot of the work that we do and that we want to do is work that uplifts other creatives with similar lived experiences and similar intersections. So I think. I think automatically it's probably just going to go right back into work stuff, which I'm happy with. I love work.
Yeah.
This work specifically.
So I want to go all the way back with you. What's the first music that you remember hearing in your life?
I grew up with parents who did a lot of event planning, and my mom was a wedding planner. And so a lot of her friends are Somali musicians and Somali singers. And so I grew up around a lot of Awais Khamis and Hassan al Samatar and Lul Jailani. And I think that just seeing the way that they moved around a room, even like small wedding venues, I think that it really made me just obsessed with the idea of charisma and like magnetism. And I think that they were always my idols. And I think even when I learned how to speak English and started learning more about Western music, I think I always went for musicians that I felt like were really charismatic. I don't think that I specifically felt like that my favorite singers had to be incredibly technical or whatever. I think I just like people that pulled me in.
Right. And at what age did you start to take music like seriously, either as a listener or as an artist?
I would say I've always loved music. I've always been around music. I think music has always been that thing that's kind of been around me, but I didn't want to do. I've only been seriously professionally doing music for the last couple years. I think moving out to LA was like the thing that made it feel real. And even when I moved out to LA, I didn't necessarily come out here to be an artist. I came out here to write songs for other people. So me being, me being in a thing where like my name is attached to it feels incredibly accidental, and I'm like rolling with it as things progress. But I've always loved the music. I just think I've always loved words. I've loved words, and I've loved the way that people put words together, and I've loved the ability that folks have to create dialectic experiences through like weaving together sounds and words to convey a thing that they're feeling on the inside.
Nice. So is there an artist that you were listening to a lot kind of growing up that inspired you, like in your music taste?
I think many artists inspired me a lot. I think about people like Amy Winehouse. I think her songwriting structure and her like poetic way of kind of deconstructing poems to create songs is super duper inspiring to me. I think Beyonce is a songwriter, and Mariah Carey, I think, is a very underrated songwriter. I love the fact that she studied radio and popular music and like created like a really algorithmic mathematical way of thinking about how people receive hooks and choruses. And I think that we never talk about enough. We talk about her like singing capacity, but we never speak to the fact that she wrote those songs. Like she wrote Hero, she wrote Vision of Love. And a lot of the people I think that inspired me too are women and imaginative people. I think even more recently, Janelle Monáe and her ability to create a 10-year-long story before any of us ever heard it, and like watching the unfolding of it as if it's like someone actively participating in a process that we as listeners had no idea took her a decade to like preemptively create in her brain. Right now, artists that inspire me are like artists like Solange, and artists that very specifically know who their audience is and who they're singing for, and kind of can call in adjacent or peripheral listeners just by creating this very specific experience. A Seat at the Table is like one of my favorite projects of the last 10 years.
Yeah, me too. And it's interesting with her, isn't it? Because obviously with her sister, you might think that she just kind of like hide in the background and not feel that she can express herself. But in actual fact, like of the two, Solange is my favorite artist. And I think that she's, you know, as amazing as Beyonce is, it's really interesting to see how she's taken music in a completely different kind of almost left field direction. But it's incredible. Nobody's quite like her either.
I think her music is distinct, and I think that she does that really great thing I love about musicians, where they're able to hide the medicine and the magic in the food, you know, and like is able to deliver a message from a place that doesn't feel like she's speaking at people. It feels like she's like just really beautifully and eloquently like speaking to her experiences in a way that's relatable and palpable, and it permeates and anoints the listener in like the best type of abrasive way. I think she's just like, she's it, and she's entirely her own person, and her cultural additions to the musical zeitgeist are very individual to her as a person, regardless of her older sibling. And I think it's a huge feat when your sibling is Beyonce.
Yeah. And she also had the coolest wedding. Did you see her wedding photos?
Shut down the internet, and I think influenced weddings for years to come.
There you go. So as far as your music is concerned, we've only had like a hint of what you're about to do, I think. Is what we've heard so far representative of what is likely to come?
No. I think that the thing that I really want to consistently have people understand as I make music is that I'm not formulaic, and I'm still figuring myself out. I think I'm coming into the music game a little later than most people do. A lot of people who are like around my age or even a little older started when they were 17. And so people have gotten to grow up with them. And so I kind of feel like instead of viewing it as like a game of catch up, I can use this opportunity to kind of show people where I come from, who I've been before this, and like allow them to meet me where I'm at in a more organic way. But the next song that I'm coming out with is my favorite song. I think it's the one that makes me feel like I have footing more so than, and I love Down For, I love Politics, I love Good Life, but my next single is the one that I think makes me feel like I have purpose and place here. You know, it's the one that helps to take the edge off my own imposter syndrome. And it's like, it's African inspired, and there's a Bangladeshi jazz sample on it. And I think I have a Jersey club mix on the project too. So I don't know that I'm allowed to say genuinely that I think that the music I've released is indicative of what's to come. I don't even think I quite know what's to come. I think the only promise I can make is that I'm always going to try to be as honest as possible with where I am at in that particular moment, and hope that people can meet me where I'm at.
Is an album kind of something that's even in the works yet? Is it something you're starting to think about, or you're just concentrating on singles at this point?
Oh no, I have an EP that I'm working on, and my EP comes out really soon in like the next few months. I'm hoping it'll come out. And I don't think I'm album ready yet. I think I haven't put in my time. I think that I wouldn't know what I would want to say yet. And I'm also not a singles person in that, like, I've released one single every year for the last 3 years. Like, I released a song in 2020, one in 2021, and one in 2022. And I know it's been a long time coming, but I just don't ever want people to feel like I have genuine faith in what we're working on and what we're doing. And I think that faith allows me to feel like it's going to work out regardless. So I might as well try to do this thing as honest to myself as possible, because I just don't think people or the consumers are dumb. I think people can tell right away when you're doing something you don't want to do. And I think people can tell when you're like chasing a thing, or you're hungry or thirsty for a thing, and it's coming from a place of just like a lack of faith. And I genuinely do have faith. So I hope that when we do put the EP out, it's resonant with folks, and that there are folks that this music feels like it's for, and that feel like they can receive it when it comes as it is. So yeah, EP first, and then maybe like a year from now or something, an album if we're ready.
So I had this question I wanted to ask you. Is there an artist who you admire that if you found out they were a fan of your music, it would be the ultimate compliment?
Yeah, I think so many people. I think everyone I find out listens to my music, my brain goes, oh. I think, I don't know that I feel like this is like fairy tale thinking, but maybe Solange, even Kehlani, I would say, because I think Kehlani is someone who's been really instrumental in me feeling like this music thing is palpable or like tangible for me. Because I think when Kehlani came out, I don't think I saw music modeled in a way that I thought was sustainable or like ethical for me. And I think that Kehlani's been someone who, I know we talk a lot about cancel culture, but I think they have modeled really well redemption culture and what it looks like to have a relationship with their audience that feels accountable and personal and feels authentic. And their music has always been reflective, I think, of what they've been feeling. It was the first time I was getting to go on like complex.com or go on playlists and hear pronouns that weren't the usual pronouns when I was listening to a love song, you know? And I think your brain kind of goes like, oh, that's possible. And I think that without Kehlani's music, there is no politics, you know, in a way. So I think that if I ever heard that Kehlani liked my music or was a fan, it would feel full circle, because I'd be remiss to say that I'm not here because of the, like they walked so people like me could run.
Yeah, nice. So if you could collaborate with anybody, are we talking these are like your ultimate people that you might want to collaborate with, or are there newer artists that you're a big fan of that you think your music you could collaborate with on that scope?
I think there's so many. I really love everything that Tame Impala touches. I think if I ever could do a song with Remy Wolf, I think is doing really, really great things sonically and melodically. There's a lot of artists. I think I'm a huge fan of music. I feel like I'm not one of those people who think they're too cool to say that they are. I genuinely love, like, you know how there are phases in time where people say there's like no good music out right now. I think we're like eating well right now in the musical zeitgeist. And so I think, yeah, maybe Remy Wolf, maybe Brie Runway, I would love. I just think that it's like that question to me blows my mind, because I can't even imagine folks like listening to my stuff, let alone collaborating. But, you know, if I'm wishing on a star, them probably. I think I'm just a really big fan of like a lot of the queer and trans acts coming out right now. I think like a homie of mine, Dra Saleh, if I ever did a song with them, I would love. Yeah, a lot of folks.
That makes me think, actually, because this term queer pop seems to be, we're hearing it a lot these days. Do you think having the word queer in a music genre is a good thing, or what's your feelings on that?
I think it depends on how it's used and the mechanism for why we're calling it queer pop. I think music is inherently queer. I think you can't really listen to rock, pop, hip hop, any of the genres of music that are popular right now and not hear queer influences. I think that like taking queer even out of the conversation feels ahistorical to me. But I think calling music queer pop for the simple like want to be able to define that this is like music specifically made by queer folks with culturally queer elements, to just like as an indicator, not as like a means to abridge access or a means to abridge other people's ability to be able to like touch the music. I don't think is right. But I love queer pop music, and I think that like I don't even think that you can think about like hyperpop without thinking about queer influences on hyperpop. And like all my favorite hyperpop artists like Charlie XCX and Poppy, and I don't think that you can think about their music without thinking about the inherently queer, just like lines that move through them.
Yeah. So you just mentioned Charlie XCX and Poppy. Both of those artists are doing things very much on their own terms. Is that something that inspires you? You seem like the kind of person that just wants to do things your way.
Yeah, I think Charlie XCX is like a really great example of like a songwriter who's been able to genre bend because of just like their sheer skill. You know, I think Charlie's like repertoire, people that she's worked with, is long and has so much range, just because I think like she's liberated by her genuine wants. I've never heard her work with an artist, or I've never heard her on a production that I didn't think was inherently hers or didn't feel like something true to what she likes to listen to. And I'm definitely inspired by Charlie and Poppy and artists that just like don't feel like they have to do any one thing. I think if I want to pop out next week and want to do Gregorian chant, I'm lucky that I have the team that's like, let her try, like let her do what she wants to do.
Yeah, and obviously Poppy's bringing in a lot of the heavier elements. You know, she's opening for metal bands and things like that. Like, how far would you want to push your sound? How broad do you want to go?
I think like I have a B-side to this next single that I'm working on right now is super Somali influenced and has Bangladeshi jazz on it, like I said earlier. But the B-side to it is an entirely Somali language song. And I have a Somali Joe rapper who lives in Mogadishu right now on the song as well. I think I'm never not gonna want to try and grow and learn. And I hope that people are okay with it, because I'm not gonna not do it. You know? And also like I think that I make music I want to listen to, and I know that my homies want to listen to. And so I think my only hope is that there are other people who want to listen to the thing, because I don't think I'll ever be someone who wants to just do things to be palatable or do it just for fun. Like I made Good Life because I wanted to make Good Life and I was heartbroken and I wanted to make a song that sounded like that. I made a Jersey Club mix because I remember exactly where I was when I heard a Jersey Club song for the first time, and I wanted one on my project because I like listening to Jersey Club. I think if I'm exposed to different sounds as I grow and I want to incorporate them into my music, I think that's just something that I hope folks can understand and give grace to, because it's going to happen regardless.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned that one of your original plans was to write for other artists. Is, considering how things are going for you, is that something you still want to be involved in, or are you just going to write yourself now?
Definitely, definitely. I always say to people that writing for other people is the funnest part about this thing for me. I think writing for myself feels really cringy and embarrassing. I can't listen to Good Life because I just cannot believe that there's a song out there about that ex in the world that people get to hear me say these things about.
Mm.
I think I'm a Capricorn moon, Capricorn rising. I was raised in a really traditionally like emotionally repressed culture. And so I think speaking about my emotions is like hard for me, and music is one of the only ways. But when I get to do it for other people, it feels like escapism, and it feels like I feel like a baby therapist, and I'm like listening to their thoughts and helping them get their thoughts out in the manner that they see fit. And so when it goes out into the world, no matter how sad or down bad it sounds, it's not mine. And so I feel like there's like an element of space or distance to it that gives me a sort of sense of I don't catch a lot of the collateral like ricochet effects of it. So maybe it's something I should work on. Maybe it's something I need to like unpack further for myself. But I'll never stop writing for other people.
And I think writing for other people it kind of frees you up in certain ways in your writing style, but you can actually learn from that for your own material, I would imagine.
Yeah, always. I think like I like the really cool thing is I get pulled in to write for women a lot. And I consider myself someone who's gender non-binary. And so femininity is not something that I feel like I tap into very often, but I think it's really cool to kind of talk to other women or femme-identifying people often about the ways in which they feel about love and life and mental health and anxiety. And I think it's a way for me to tap into community. And there's like this communal thing that happens when you write with people because you gotta really in minutes establish trust with people, because essentially you're talking about sometimes their biggest heartbreaks or like a lot of the things that they're moving through that maybe you would not talk to a stranger about. And so it's sometimes these like sessions that are either 2 hours or 5 hours become mini pockets or vacuums for just like a wide range of emotions with people that you might not otherwise get to connect with. And especially like post-pandemic, I think it's like kind of a priceless experience when it happens.
Mm. So are you somebody that when you hear the song on the radio or wherever, sometimes you're just like, oh, I wish I'd thought of that?
Always. I'm the like freaking captain of sending songs to people and saying like, don't you wish you wrote this melody? Don't you wish you hummed this verse? Like I have a growing list, and I have like my go-tos at sessions when people ask like, what's the song you wish you wrote? That I'm always like,
yeah, because that's like a bit of a cliche question, but
yeah.
Actually it's quite revealing, because it kind of tells me where like what your aspirations are, what you consider to be absolute magic.
Can I tell you mine? Can I tell you one?
Of course.
One of mine is the song called Warm Pants by Dura Saleh, who's a homie and a friend of mine. They're like a really great artist from Minneapolis.
Okay.
And that's their song. It's been sampled by Brent Faiyaz before, but I think Dura is one of my favorite artists out right now. And I think Dura is someone who's going to have like legacy in this industry, because they just, I think that their writing style is really unique and beautiful to them. They have a voice that is anointing and that is piercing. The melody of that song though is so catchy and in a really unassuming way. And every time I'm in a studio session and someone asks me what's the song I wish I wrote, it's that one, because I can listen to it and not get tired of it. I can drive for hours to that song, and it's beautiful, and it's a breakup song, but it sounds like it's everything. It's remnant of the song by this sister duo called Ibeyi called River that I love as well. I just think Dua is everything, and that song itself is. I like beg them all the time to re-release it. I'm like, when they make an album, they have to re-release it. I'm like, when you're at the peak and your height of a success, you have to be able to like, because I feel like it's a gift. That song is a gift. It feels perfect in the same way that I think when I first heard like Get You by Daniel Caesar, I thought it was perfect. Like it was a song that start to finish felt like a good song. But Warm Pants for sure. If you
Amazing.
haven't heard it, you should listen to more.
I'm definitely gonna
It's a treat. It's a treat.
So my last question is, what album do you think you've listened to in your life more than any other?
Album in my life. I honestly think it's A Seat at the Table.
Really?
I think either The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill or A Seat at the Table for sure. Maybe Frank by Amy Winehouse as well. Oh, I was saying that there's this instrumental album by Salam Remy called Prognosis. And it's like this, he had the symphony and this orchestra in Prague. He wrote all this like original music and had them do it. And it's the basis of a lot of samples that we've heard throughout the music he's used to produce for the Fugees and Amy Winehouse and Nas and Jasmine Sullivan and Miguel. And so like #1 singles, all these hits, a lot of them have the same string quartet playing behind them. And the songs on that EP, the Prognosis EP, are like the skeletons of a lot of those hits. So Prognosis, I think I listen to a lot in the car.
Okay, I don't know that one either, so I'm going to check that out. So yeah, thanks very much for your time. Congratulations on the success so far. I know it's very early days, but it's a hint of things to come, I think.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated it. And you were really warm, by the way. I just want to name that, like, your warm too has been really helpful. I'm a really nervous person.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and hope you get to hang out with your grandma a bit more.
Yes, I would love
that. Like she's too busy.
Learn more about you, because I hear an accent and I thought I was doing Canadian interviews, so I would love to hear the backstory of how you do it.
I'm in Montreal, but
okay.
I am from the UK. I've been here 7 years, but I married one of those Canadian girls, so
okay.
She got me.
It's the reverse of American boy, it's Canadian girl.
Yeah.
Hey. Well, I hope we get to meet sometime in person and get to really chop it up, and I get to hear some of your backstory too. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much.
All right. Thanks again. You take care.
You too.